Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Financial Independence Show. This is our Thanksgiving special episode. Justin and I just checked. The first time we did this was back in 2019, so 6 years ago, and this is our 2025 edition. The show notes and links and everything will be at thefiveshow.com/thanks25. That's thefiveshow.com/thanks25. Justin, we have not had an episode, just you and I, in a while. There's been a lot of life updates, a lot of developments. Just first of all, before we dive into all this thankful stuff, how are you?
Man, I'm doing good. We just, and I'm sure this will kind of weave into part of the discussion we'll have today, but we just wrapped up this weekend with a lot of the overarching things that I'm very thankful for, which includes friends and like health and wellness and fitness. So we spent the weekend up in Dallas doing a high rocks competition. And for those who are not familiar with what that is, it's kind of a mix between running and these like weighted events. So you'll run a kilometer and you'll do something like a sled push and then a kilometer. And, so there's 8 different runs, 8 different stations. And me and Leslie actually competed together in the mixed doubles division and had a ton of fun and got to do that alongside of some friends. So that's what we did this last weekend. And like I said, I know we'll be diving into all that kind of stuff a lot more in the episode. But how about you, Cody?
Yeah, I've been very busy, doing pretty well. I actually just got back from a bachelor party, so people can probably hear my voice is a little hoarse. I was in very loud environments, bars, concerts, you name it, yelling to our group of 16 guys. So bear with me today. My voice is coming back, but it's a little shaky. But in general, I mean, because we haven't really done like a catch-up episode in forever, been really close to starting to break ground on our forever home. I'm going to be talking about that today. Health and fitness has been a focus, like a really hard focus since we got back from our European wedding trip. And so, yeah, like the past month I've been like really into that. And hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, that will continue into the new year. I'm not gonna say hopefully, I'm gonna be about it. And then, yeah, man, life is good. Family is good. I really can't complain about much. And that's kind of why we do these thankfulness episodes is I feel like we get so bogged down in the, this thing's wrong or this isn't the way I want it to be. And I don't know. Sometimes it's just nice to reflect and just see how many things are actually going right, despite what the world tells you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the great time about this time of year is um, even if it's things that maybe didn't necessarily happen like this week or this month, like maybe it's these bigger overarching things that you just haven't taken the time to step back and be thankful for. I know I came home from like a concert the other night before the day before our Friendsgiving, and it was just like I was all amped up, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like could not go to sleep. Leslie was going to sleep, but we were getting ready to have Friendsgiving later that day. So a tradition we've had for years where we have, this most random collection of people, like where a lot of times people are showing up to eat at our house and the only person that they know is us. Like they don't know any of the other people that are coming. And it's really cool getting to see other people make those connections. But anyway, like I come home, I'm all amped up from the show. It was this crazy show where it started at 1:30 in the morning and ended at 4:30 in the morning. And I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to go outside, take a moment and, like text a bunch of people that like I don't always reach out to and just like let them know I'm thankful for them because I had Friendsgiving on my mind. And again, I think that's the cool thing about this time of the year is it gives you a reason to kind of just slow down and think and let people know that you're thinking about them and just be thankful for the things you got going on in your own world.
Yeah, when I got that text at what was it, 5 a.m, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is such a nice way to wake up. Thank you so much, Justin. Like, really appreciate it as a friend, and yeah, it was just a nice little touch, and it probably didn't take you that long to type up messages and then customize it for each person, but stuff like that goes a long way. And speaking of your Friendsgivings, we actually haven't recorded an episode of kind of about life since your wedding, and a lot of the people that I saw at your wedding were people I met at that original Thanksgiving back in Boston when I showed up that one year. And I was in that camp where I didn't know anybody besides you and Leslie, and I just made a bunch of friends, and it was really cool reconnecting with everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely like a big thankfulness thing on this list is the wedding and just getting to see all these like friends and friendships that have, we've kept over the years. And that's definitely one thing, and I'm sure listeners may get a little bit of whiplash. I'll try to keep these into categories, but we get to talking about one thing, and it makes you think about something
It all
else.
spills
But
over. Yeah.
living the lifestyle that we both live, but I think you've got a little bit more of a flag there in Central Mass. Like you grew up there, you've spent year over year there. Me and Leslie have moved around a lot. Like we met in Colorado, then she went to New York, and I went to Boston, and then we both come to Boston, and now we're in Texas, and um, that's the one thing you give up. Like nobody's ever going to feel sorry for us for the amount of travel we do and that sort of thing. But community is tough. And a lot of times we worry that maybe we are losing connections with people and we're not sure where we fit into other people's life because we're not there all the time. And so something like whether it's Friendsgiving or the wedding, um, where when the time comes and you want people to show up and they do show up, and those connections are still there, it's just really rewarding, and it feels really good to know that like you are still important to people and you do still have this community, even though you're not there every day. You're not always like maybe top of mind because you're not in their weekly schedule, or you kind of go off the face of the earth for 6 months at a time.
Yeah.
That those people are still there when you need them.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think this past year we have made a much more intentional effort, Lauren and myself, to just like, I don't know, whether it's once a week or once a month, or when, and whether that's a text or that's doing something in person, just like kind of maintaining connections. And like I said, it's sometimes it could take 1 minute or it could take an afternoon. Like something I've been doing over the past probably 6 months or so is me and my mom and my brother and her boyfriend and sometimes like my uncle. We'll just do like a random family thing. So like 2 weeks ago we played pickleball. We'll go bowling like almost every week. We'll just do like a random thing to just like kind of, I don't know, maintain that connection. Not that I'm ever gonna lose connection with my family, but I feel like it's so easy for, even if you're a couple miles away from your parents or your siblings or whatever, even if you're a couple miles away, it's so easy to just a couple months go by and you haven't seen them or hung out with them or done anything meaningful. And so we've been really trying to pack our lives, like especially while we're home, when we're not traveling. Like, okay, how can we like be really intentional about seeing the people who are important to us this week? Or if we can't see them, if we don't have that ability, if they're living in Austin, Texas, or they're living somewhere else around the country or the world, shooting them a text or just like letting them know that we're thinking about them or that we care about them. So I think that's a theme that we've really kind of carried forward through all of 2025, and being able to reflect on that, I'm like, you know what? I actually do feel like closer to these people. I actually do feel more connected. I don't feel so isolated, which, as someone who's been a kind of a solo entrepreneur for like 6 years, I've definitely gotten that feeling where I'm just like, I'm working in a silo. I don't have any coworkers. And so like sometimes I can catch myself and I haven't really talked to anyone throughout the entire day, which kind of stinks. And that's not the point, in my opinion. That's like not a point of life. Like the point of life is about relationships and connection. So being really intentional and kind of grounding myself in that has been a really cool thing in 2025 to see. And I'm definitely going to carry that into the next year.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes, like you said, it's even if you're close by, it can be easy to put things off, or in that for us, like that's half the battle, or like that's a really big thing we're trying to like focus on is just showing up even when we don't really want to, like even maybe if our battery's a little tired. And something that kind of weaves a few of the things we've already talked about together is, um, for us, again, we don't have a workplace. We don't have, maybe we're not always in the same area all the time, but we have really started making a lot more connections in the fitness community in Austin. And so there's some of these things that do happen week over week, like these run clubs and things that we're trying to make a better practice of showing up for those. And it's crazy how like the dominoes fall and how that has led to outcomes. Like, we started going to these Tuesday morning track workouts, and then we get to know some people there. And then, you fast forward and like we're keeping in touch with them a lot more regularly. And a lot of these people are in the fitness community are like, maybe they're doing it as quote unquote like influencers or whatever. Like that's part of their livelihood. They're putting out a lot of content. Well, I'm sitting there the morning of about almost midnight, the night before the wedding, and we find out our videographer is canceled. And Leslie's heartbroken. I was super bummed out. I'm trying not to let her know I'm even like working on trying to find a backup plan because I just don't even want her to stress. And I'm reaching out to everybody I can think of. Turns out, shout out to Jake, one of the guys from the run club, gets me in contact with a photographer who he met at that same run club, because the photographer takes pictures of folks while they're out there running and stuff. And we get in touch with him the morning of the wedding, like 30 minutes before the ceremony is going to start. He's able to make it out there and film the brunch, film the evening reception, and all that sort of stuff. So now we've captured these moments we were really worried about losing. And then you fast forward a little bit further. Jake is putting together this ultra marathon, which for those who don't know, an ultra marathon is just anything longer than a marathon. So anything longer than 26 miles is considered an ultra. And, Jake's putting together this 34-mile run. There's supposed to be like 15 people joining him. It's about almost like an hour and a half away from Austin. We were tired. That's a long way. We've never ran anything like that. We almost canceled, but we're like, no, we're going to show up. We're going to be good friends. We show up. We are the only people who actually came through. Everybody else canceled. And I'm just sitting there putting myself in his shoes like, man, if I would have been doing this and had to do it completely by myself, like that would have sucked. And anyway, so we do that with Jake. Same, Miguel is the name of the photographer. The same photographer is there to capture that morning. Gets all these awesome moments captured. And because it's only us three, like we got a lot of really awesome shots. It wasn't like spread across this big group. And then, now Jake is like was a member at our Friendsgiving, and he gets to meet all our other friends. And anyway, that just shows how like all this stuff just kind of comes together, and we really do need a community. Like we don't even know why we're going to need that community until we do, but like, and it's not for a selfish thing. Like you're just trying to make friends in case like you need help someday. But it's just so good for you in so many different directions. It's so mutually beneficial to everybody in the group. So that's just a little kind of side story of how us trying to not quit and not say no and not just like stay in the bed, like getting up and putting a little bit of extra effort in, led to a lot of like enrichment in our lives, and how the fitness communities played a big part in our lives this year.
Speaking of health and fitness, now that I'm getting older, which sounds even funny to say that, I'm turning 30 next year, but I have noticed that I feel so much more privileged to be able to work out. Like when I have an injury, you don't notice how you're like how easy it is to just go on a run when you don't have something wrong with your knee or ankle, or how easy it is to like do push-ups when your shoulder's not bothering you. And then when that thing does happen, it sucks. Like it just crushes your world if you're used to regularly working out. I know, Justin, you're shaking your head. You had a Achilles injury recently, and it just takes you down, man. It's just like I feel like I don't appreciate. It's kind of like when you're when you're stuffed up, that's all you can think about. But like the days you can breathe normally, you don't even think twice about it. It's just like when the getting gets tough, that's when that's when you fully appreciate when it's easy. So that's something I don't know, haven't taken for granted as much this year. And, in terms of what I've done to act on that, I guess been doing like things like stretching and just like trying to do injury prevention type stuff, because my injuries last longer and longer. I have like two horrible shoulders. And when I have a month where they're both just bothering me, it bothers me to no end. It's so annoying because I've been actively, this is something I was talking about earlier a little bit, but I am actively trying to put on some weight and some muscle so then I can cut down for the summer. And I got like a shoulder injury, and I'm like, oh great, now it's gonna be really hard for me to like do progressive overload. And I'm doing all the other stuff right. Like I'm tracking all my calories and macros, my fitness pal, but like this one thing is just bothering me to no end. So that is something that over the past year or several years, as my body has been slower and slower to recover, I am much more thankful for the days that I can work out without pain or injury.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, you don't really realize how much it matters to you until it gets taken away from you. And like you mentioned, had like the little Achilles issue. I was supposed to be running a marathon here in just a couple weeks, and decided to defer that to the next year. But was so thankful that it is on the up and up and healed enough for like us to do our High Rocks race, and that I don't think I'm going to have to take too much time longer off of training. It also really hits home because about 3 weeks ago, my nephew, who is in his early 20s, had a really bad motorcycle wreck. And when it first happened, there was like it was believed that he was probably going to lose his foot. Ended up, they were able to like get blood flow back to it, was able to salvage it. Don't know exactly what the full long-term effects are, but his rehab is going really well. And everything's looking positive. My nephew Jay's wreck really brought home to me, like, even when I am having those injuries, like, yes, like having those injuries makes me even more thankful for being when I am healthy, but then also like seeing someone else in a really bad place reminds me of like, even when I'm in kind of like rehab mode, like how thankful I am that I'm at least still there and it's not like completely shut down, because I can't imagine like the mental strength that it would take to do that where you're going all the way back from square one. Because I mean, sometimes like I've had to take 3 weeks off from running, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching my Garmin predicted like half marathon time
Your Garmin's
climbing
like,
by
you're a loser,
seconds and
Justin.
minutes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but it's not like you're not having to shut things completely down for months, and like that would be just such a hill to climb. So definitely some more things that kind of help bring out that thankfulness, and I'm so thankful that his rehab is going as well as it is.
I'm very thankful for that as well. I didn't know that about your cousin, but yeah, hopefully speedy recovery. Everything's 100% because you just really never know. I heard a thing, I forget who was saying it. It was some podcast lessons. It was some podcast I was listening to. It's about how as your quality of life increases, the things you complain about and the things that you worry about just get more small, like smaller and smaller from an objective point of view. Like for someone who, does lose both their legs, like I'm pretty sure they're like levels, not definitely not a doctor, whatever the levels are, like their baseline happiness, all their like serotonin, all that stuff goes back to normal after like 6 months. Like you just kind of accept it as your new reality. So like there's a lot of these things where we have just gotten to such a point in society where something like National Grid knocks out my power for 4 minutes and I'm like mad for a second. I'm like, hold on, I have this like magic Wi-Fi that powers my house and it's like the fastest speed that you can possibly get. And I'm talking to Justin halfway across the country. We were recording this episode where thousands of people listen to us talk. It's really not that bad in the grand scheme of things. People 5,000 years ago would have thought any of this happening was a miracle. So yeah, just kind of realizing how good we have it sometimes, and how if life for 6 months was, or like if life usually wasn't this good, we wouldn't be complaining about half of these things. So I always like that reframe too, is like when something's really hard at work, or like something hard with, there's a difficult thing with friends or family or whatever, or money. I just try to really put myself in the shoes of someone who's in like a 1,000 times worse objective situation, and just be like, okay, like what would this person think about my situation? They'd probably be like, wow, look at all this food I have in the kitchen. Or, I don't have to worry about walking 10 miles to get my water every day. Or, I have this amazing thing called electricity. There's just like so many things that I feel like we take for granted because it's just become such a normal thing over the centuries and decades.
For sure. And I mean, the trip that we went on this year, the 6 months out of the country, as much of a luxury and an awesome thing that was in of itself, being on that trip made me realize how many like privileges and things we had to be thankful for back home was, not even just like material things, but even just like logistical things, like taking for granted that like I can just go up to anyone and just speak to them and they can understand me, and
Yeah.
like we can communicate with each other. Or like if I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, or there's something like I need, I know which store to go to, how to get there, how to navigate to it, all that sort of stuff. It's not like this starting from square one, like I don't even know if there is a store that does this, and then once I figure out that there is one, where it is, and then okay, now how do I get myself to it, like all those sorts of things. There's just everything is more complicated when you're in a different country or a different part of the world, where and that could either be because of maybe the development of that country, or it could just be because it is foreign to you and the language is foreign to you, even in a very developed country. So yeah, just taking that kind of like being able to put your brain on autopilot, like taking that for granted, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hop in my car, I'm going to go to the same grocery store I've been to 1,000 times, I know exactly which aisle to go down, I'm going to grab my thing, takes no mental energy. And you know versus like it being this whole process just to figure out, like, I mean, you wouldn't believe the excitement when we'd figure out where we could get protein powder, and like some of the links that we went to try to get protein powder, versus like here it just shows up on my doorstep when I want it.
Yeah, I think Instacart and DoorDash and those types of apps are one of the things I just think is so crazy. Imagine telling someone 1,000 years ago you could click a button on your phone and have pretty much any food that you want delivered to your doorstep in 30 minutes. Like it seems so unfathomable. And it's just something that we just take for granted. And if it's late or if it's cold or if they give us the wrong thing, like we're so mad about it. But that's just one of those things where it's just, the kings and queens of, Europe didn't have access to something like that. Like, yes, they could probably get most things delivered to them in a decent amount of time, but they couldn't click a button on their phone and have every cuisine from around the world show up at their doorstep in 30 seconds. Like they didn't have that, despite the immense wealth they had to compared to everybody else at the time. So I don't know. There's so many things where I like to ground myself and be like, okay, we have it pretty good. Let's take a second and maybe not complain about the minutia that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Something I'm curious about, Justin, with your 6-month trip and the wedding this year, and I feel like stuff like that just has probably brought you and Leslie so much closer and more communication. I know communication has been something Lauren and I have been focused on a lot this year. Is there anything in particular you've done this year, whether you're definitely going to be thankful for it, or if it's just like a procedural, I don't know, type of like a monthly meeting type thing? Or is there anything this year that comes to mind?
Like from a relationship standpoint, I mean, one thing that me and Leslie have done is a lot of times we'll do this where we'll take like once a week and we'll sit down, and because we do share like one primary vehicle, she is doing like some coaching, and like we all the time are signing up for so many random little events. And even though, you know, like right now she's in the middle of she's doing a little bit of a contract gig, so she's closer to a full-time kind of workflow. Most of the year she hasn't been, and after February next year she won't be. So we have an insane amount of time available, and we have an insane amount of time together. Like we probably spend more time together than any couple I know, because we live together, work out together, all that sort of stuff. But still, because we are like social creatures and we do have so much like variability in our schedule, because we don't have those like set schedules, it's easy to just be like bouncing from one thing to another and not be able to kind of keep up with each other. And so we would sit down, like go to a coffee shop or something, sit down on a Sunday or Monday, and just look forward the next 2 weeks and talk about like day by day, what are some of the events that we have going on? What are some of the things we need the other one to be aware of? How we're just going to kind of like balance, like who's got the car, when we're going to be at home, like meals we could have together, and just get it on the same page so that it's not just this constant kind of drive by, a little pop here, pop there, and it feeling like we're never quite sure, and we're never quite in any kind of rhythm. And then setting aside sometimes like, okay, protect this time. We're going to do some kind of date night or whatever. Because again, we have so much time, like so much more time than most people. But if you're not still like thoughtful about it and conscious about it, they won't necessarily line up with each other. And it can still be this like, where you're just, as they say, like two ships passing in the night, where you're just both bouncing around if you're not intentional about it.
Well, yeah, there's, like I said, there's just so many instances where you can get a reframe on something throughout the day. Alex Hormozy, who is this master marketer that I really like and enjoy his content, he always talks about like what's he call it? Like the frame of the veteran. Like if you were to have gone through this scenario 1,000 times and it's just normal, like how would you look at it different? So like let's say you have one day where traffic's just horrible and it's like an hour to get to the place. What if it was an hour every single time you drove to that place? Like it would be a complete reframe. You wouldn't even think about it twice. You'd be excited if you got there in half an hour. Or like, you have a loved one who passes, or you have, something just bad that happens. Like if you reframe it to, some people don't get this many years with that animal or with that loved one. Like some people don't get the opportunity to travel here or there when you might have travel delays or issues. Like there's just so many times where if you reframe and think of if this scenario was the scenario that happened every single time, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. So I love using that on myself, and it definitely does work. It's effective. And sometimes you just catch yourself complaining about the silliest little things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So one thing Lauren and I have implemented is monthly meetings. And so we have all these different categories. I'll actually just bring them up. Might as well keep it real here. So we have a monthly meeting we put in our notes, and every month we just review on kind of every single category. So we have like money, real estate, since we have a decent real estate portfolio, health and fitness, travel, relationships, meaning our relationship and also our relationships with family members, friends, everyone in our lives. Then we have a random, and then we have goals for the next month. So every month we do this. We usually sit down. It takes like, I don't know, 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, depends what we have going on. And it's just a really good reset. Like, I really like how we got after it this month. We did a lot of running. We were really healthy. Or maybe like this past month, we partied a little too much and we ate like a little worse than we should have. Or, I feel like I didn't spend enough time with my friends and, this group. And so like we just are able to kind of course correct a little bit for that next month because we're actively reviewing every single month. And like we've had things where I'll tell Lauren something or she'll tell me something like, hey, this little thing that you're doing is bothering me a little bit. Like if you could, try not to do it as much or just be cognizant that it's happening. And it's, those things, like when you kind of nip them in the bud at the beginning, and again, it goes both ways. Instead of having a blowout 6 months down the road because like this one person's just been constantly doing this thing that's been annoying you, you can just mention it casually in one of your monthly meetings or your weekly meetings or however you want to convene with your significant other. And it just makes like communication so much better. So that's been huge for us. We really started like we would do like an annual review, but like we started doing monthly meetings. I think either at the end of last year or beginning of this year, and that has been a game changer. I think we're a lot happier. We're a lot more aligned on goals, and we're just making more progress toward those goals because we're kind of speaking them into existence, if you will.
I really like that. I mean, I like the course correction, and I also like the, that always thinking about that kind of nip it in the bud versus letting something fester, like letting something build up and build up and build up to it's a real problem. So definitely like that. I know one thing that is that I wanted to talk about a little bit, which kind of ties over all of these things for me. Like I'm a big fan of thinking through like the domino effect, and I know if, for the Cody, you were at the wedding, so you may have heard it mentioned at some of the talks, but like I brought it up a couple times about like the domino effects of what all like led us to be there that day, how we all know each other. Like I just love thinking through that. I love thinking through like the steps that it took to be necessary for something to happen. And for so many of the things that I'm thankful for today, none of them would be possible, or they certainly wouldn't be in the place that they are now if I wouldn't have made the decision 3.5 years ago to like take alcohol from my life. Now, this is not a like PSA to tell everyone you got to stop drinking. Everybody's different, right? But for me, that was an amazing decision. And when I think about like the trip that we went on, and there were so many times on that where I can imagine if I was, back in my drinking days and I've got a few blackout moments here and there, like it could cause all this extra stress and it makes that trip so much more complicated. I can't imagine my wedding, like if I would have been, if I would have missed half of it because I would have been like blacked out and couldn't remember things. I think about like, some of the times like when we go, like I couldn't have made it out to a show till 4:30 in the morning if I'd have been drinking. Like there's all these things, even with like the health and wellness stuff, like there's no way I would be in the shape that I am in now if I wouldn't have done that. And so that is something that I'm just super thankful for. And it's also, and I think about like, I was mentioning my nephew Jay, his wreck. I'm hoping that someday like he can look back on that, something that's terrible that happened to him, and that be actually something he's extremely thankful for because it did something that changed, maybe how precious he felt every day was, or like, it just makes him grow up or whatever it is. I think about that a lot, where almost every like really bad thing that has happened to me in life, like I can look back on it now and be thankful for it because it did put me in a different direction. And so we can let these like really negative things that happen to us, you can let it like take you down. And I mean, it's still, some stuff's going to take you down for a short amount of time, but longer term, you can either let it take you down or you can use it and build off of it. And it's something the older I've gotten, the more often something bad can happen. And even if in that moment it still sucks, like I can believe because I've seen it happen so many times, and I can know that in time I'll look back on that really bad moment and it will be a positive thing. It'll be something I'm thankful for, and that really helps take the edge off of it in that initial moment.
Yeah, I heard someone talking about how if you're going to create like the strongest, bravest, whatever character in like a video game or a movie or whatever, like that person probably has to go through some crazy shit. Like they have to get beat up, like they lose all their family, like they hop into some poison vat and get powers. Like they usually go through the craziest stuff in order to get to the point where they're this superhero type person. So like it's the same with regular old people as well. Like you don't get tough by going through easy times, you don't get stronger by being lazy in the gym. Like you don't, things that are worth doing are typically hard. And so like if you go through those hard periods, you are going to come out more resilient, more like a superhero on the other side of things. So I always try to think of that as well, Justin. Like these things might suck in the moment, but that is only going to make you stronger, more resilient, tougher, whatever that attribute you might want. It's only going to make you more of that in the future. So like embrace the suck. And as hard as that might be, like it's something that I constantly have to work on actively. It doesn't just come naturally to me. I have to really kind of do I know I've been using the word reframe a lot. I have to reframe a lot of different scenarios, things that are happening, things that like might just seem so horrible in the moment. Like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And be like, you know what? Actually, this might be a good thing. Now I have more time to do X, Y, and Z. Now I can, there's always a way to reframe or reshape something to kind of work in your benefit later on.
And I know I was listening to a podcast not that long ago, and it was some crazy stat. Like I can't say it exactly, but it's like 70 or 80%. Like, we always focus in on something, like post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress syndrome, but this idea of post-traumatic growth. And that most of the time when somebody goes through like a heavy trauma, like 70 to 80% of the time, there is actually like post-traumatic growth. Like it ends up being something that the person is not more fearful, or it hasn't deteriorated their lifestyle, but they're actually more resilient, they're stronger. And I mean, there is a reason why there's the old adage, like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like going through those things will put you in a better place. And so the earlier within that process you can believe that, even if you can't see it yet, just having faith and knowing that like in time I'm going to look back on this and it's going to be a good thing, it definitely helps you ride out that initial phase a lot easier.
You know what's funny, Justin? We are a financial independence podcast. We haven't talked about money once. The whole episode about being thankful. We're both financially independent. We both don't have to work. We haven't mentioned money once. But one thing I do want to say, and I'm guessing it's the same for you, especially as a guy who spent the first 6 months traveling, I am more comforted, or I am more comfortable with FI this year than I ever have been before. And we were actually just talking before we record. Our buddy Brandon, the mad scientist, just recorded an episode on like unlearning frugality and how he's kind of able to enjoy the fruits of his labor a little bit more. We had this nest egg that's just been piling up for a decade plus at this time. I mean, I think he started blogging in like 2012 or something like that. So it's been, 13 years in the making, hit FI super early on, but he had a lot of trouble with spending. And I think I was definitely the same way. Like, it doesn't seem real because, this FI thing, I mean, when we both discovered it, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just some like marketing scam until I started meeting real people who had done it. But it just doesn't feel real. Like, how is it possible that guys in their, 30s can never have to work again? But this year, I feel like I've actually, I've looked at all the numbers and I'm like, okay, I can actually like truly appreciate FI, and I can loosen up the reins on my spending a little bit and like spending these certain categories that, we value, which I know for me and Lauren, and I think you and Leslie as well, as like experiences and travel, a lot of these like one-time things. It's not buying the Lambo or the yacht or the mega mansion. It's kind of just the things that you're going to reflect on in, a year from now or 5 or 10 years from now. So being able to just kind of sit in peace with our financial independence has been not a huge shift, but I'm definitely trending in the right direction with that. And like I said, it's so counterintuitive because your whole life, if you are someone who's on this FI journey, like the skills that got you to FI are probably not the same skills you want in FI, or else you're going to have like $100 million sitting there, because it's so hard for us to spend, to have this like frugal bone. And, those of us who can save 50, 70, 80% of our income, it is very, very hard to just shut that off once you have this magic number that says you can basically spend, X amount of dollars for the rest of your life. So it's something I definitely struggled with, and I'm getting better with it. But that episode with the mad scientist, I don't know, I really resonated with it, and it's something I've definitely got a lot better at this year.
Yeah, the Mad Scientist episode, when I listened to that, I definitely felt seen, right? Like I felt like, oh, this is like, are you just speaking about me? Like, is this like actually a podcast directly about me? Because I couldn't have resonated with it more. But I also agree with you that this year I have felt so much more like, okay, this is real, this is working, and I don't think about it near as much. It was actually funny when we were on our trip, somebody asked me when we got back, they're like, that must have been tough, right? Like you're on this trip and you have to watch like your net worth drop by like 20% or something. And I was like, honestly, I didn't even know that had happened until after it had happened. Like I wasn't checking my net worth. I wasn't in there looking. And yeah, I mean, apparently at the start of the year, there was like this big drop in the market, but all I know is by the time I got off the trip, it was more than it was when I left. So, I just wasn't checking it. And so definitely like am so much more comfortable with it. And it reminds me of another thing I had on my list of things I'm thankful for is not only like, am I feeling more like at peace and like comfortable saying like, yeah, I'm retired, is the acceptance from like family and friends. Cause I think, early on in it, I think some people are like, oh, haha, like maybe you're going to take 6 months off, or maybe this is, this like crazy idea you had, but like, surely not really. And now it's starting to become normal, and it's starting to become like, no, like Justin doesn't work anymore. He's figured it out. He's got all his stuff. And there's been more interest in like wanting to know how I done it versus just it being this like weird thing that you did. So that acceptance from not only myself, but also friends and family on this concept of early retirement has been really cool. And it's also starting to open up this thought process of like, again, this is more permanent. And now me and Leslie are starting to think about like some projects we could do together that will take some time, but knowing that we do have that time. Like 6 months from now, neither one of us will be working. And so we can plan for something that will take all of our time, whether that be like we're going to do another big international trip, but also we would love to start doing something maybe where we're organizing some retreats that have like a fitness component to it. Like we're tossing around the idea of like booking a house in Barcelona in May and trying to get some people in to go do a high rocks race international, and kind of building a trip around, you know, our love of travel and vacation and all that sort of stuff, but also with fitness and bringing that to other people. So like we can start to think about these longer term projects because it's not this little temporary thing. It is something that we have fully transitioned into.
I think another thing on the financial front is just seeing people make it work with less. We have an episode that's actually just coming to mind. And actually, I haven't even talked about this yet. I have a little secret coming up in the next year. But an episode that I was thinking about recently was our friend, A Purple Life. We had her back on in early 2020. And I think she pulled the trigger on retirement with like, it was something like 500 to 600K. Do you remember the exact
Yeah,
amount,
yeah.
Justin?
I was thinking it was
Like
between
she
five
fully
and seven
retired with
hundred.
something like that. It was like, yeah, so call it 600K. And she was just like, screw it, I'm quitting. And she has not worked since. And her net worth, I think she just posted a couple weeks ago, just reached $1 million. Just from her investments. Like she's literally not working at all, not doing freelancing. I don't think she owns any real estate. Like it's just working for her. This is like just Fi proven out. Like she retired with 600K. She is a pretty frugal spender, so we'll give her that. But she's really not bringing in income from any of these other sources, and her net worth just crossed the million mark. So like I just love seeing stories like that. And even though we've done 350 episodes, Justin, recording with people who have done it in all different ways, or sometimes I can definitely get jealous or think like what I have isn't enough. And comparison is totally the thief of joy. As I start to like level up in business and net worth, and you get like different mentors, different people you're looking up to, and all of a sudden how much you have doesn't feel like as much anymore, and you can get caught in this vicious cycle. I've definitely been caught in that cycle before and have to pull myself out, and then realize like, hey, there's so many other people who are doing this exact same thing, the thing that I have a podcast about, with a lot less. Like I shouldn't be stressing about these numbers. And going back to what I was saying before, that's when I kind of was rerunning different scenarios and Monte Carlo simulations at the beginning of the year. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Like I really don't need to hit that next accolade or that next thing, even though there's all these people who are ahead of me, and sometimes you can feel way far behind if they're in the touchdown zone and you're at the 50-yard line, just because you've now extended your goalpost. So I've definitely tried to pull myself back from the brink of comparing myself to other people in the FI space and entrepreneurship space as well. So the thing I just teased, Justin, I've spent a lot of the last couple of months, again, I've been really dialed into health and fitness, really dialed into just kind of personal projects. Like I just feel like I've been really grounded in routine, which has given me a lot of time to finally put kind of the dot in the I's and crossing the T's on my book. So the release date should be April-ish of next year. I don't even know if I want to drop the title now. Maybe I'll save a specific episode for that book. You get a pretty good chunk in it, but it is about retiring early and kind of all the steps that I took to get there and how people can, retire decades earlier than what they thought possible. So I'm very just thankful to, have been on this journey and be able to write about it and hopefully share my experiences with others. Because when someone asks me like you, I'll say, financial independence or FIRE, ever heard of it? And like some people are like, oh, kind of, yeah. And then I send them a couple of our podcast episodes, but being able to just hand someone a book with like everything I know about all this stuff and like what worked for me is just, I'm very, very excited about that. So hopefully in the next year, we can have like a dedicated episode to the book and you can just pepper me with questions. But yeah, I've been very, just thankful to be able to kind of relive my journey through words. And it was a lot of work to like hundreds, probably thousands of hours in total, but it's nearing completion, which feels really good.
Well, kudos, man. I've always heard that writing a book is one of the hardest things like you'll ever do. And it's really cool to think about like your personal finance arc where it kind of really got kicked off with a book tour. And now you'll be going on your own book tour soon enough.
Full circle. All right, Justin, you said you had some special Thanksgiving dishes before we got going here. I'm getting hungry. It's almost lunchtime while we're recording this. You said you had a special Thanksgiving dish that you're not sure our listeners are going to know about. I am now personally curious, and I'm actually wondering if I tried it at your Friendsgiving all those years back.
You might have because it's one of those dishes. Like I don't make the same thing twice very often. Like I love food, I love cooking. Like I've been making custom birthday cakes recently for whatever reason. Like I just, I'm a habitual hobbyist. I get into everything. But yeah, I had the idea of like, what if, like maybe we could share a dish that either we have really enjoyed making or that we really enjoy that maybe not everyone has on their standard Thanksgiving lineup because, like a lot of things in life, well, sometimes we just get into doing the same thing every year, every week, every whatever. And so mixing it up a little bit. So, one dish that I love to make that listeners could add to their Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving rotation is what I call like these sweet potato crostinis, even though there's no bread involved. I didn't even know what the word crostini meant until I started like making these and looked it up. It's normally like a little piece of like bread or toast, like with some stuff stacked on top of it. But these, you just take a sweet potato, cut it into, maybe like an eighth of an inch thick circle. And then you bake those on each side till you get them a little crispy. And then you stack goat cheese, roasted pecans, a little rosemary, and a little hot honey. Now you can either buy like Mike's hot honey, or if you want to be frugal, just get regular honey, throw some cayenne pepper in it, a little extra salt on top, and serve them warm. And they're just like, you pop one in your mouth, it's so good. And then it's one of those sneaky things where you don't even realize it and you've eaten 20 of them because they're just these little bite-sized pieces. But a great little appetizer you can add to your Thanksgiving spread.
Wow. Okay. Well, I am definitely not going to follow that up in any way, shape, or form. I'm usually just the guy who's on the green bean casserole. It's like the most boring standard Thanksgiving side dish. Honestly, Justin, I'm just going to take this as a call out to I need to step up my game and be a little more adventurous. I definitely don't have the same love for cooking, but I do love good food. So, maybe I am in charge of cooking something for Thanksgiving on Thursday. I was going to do my regular old green bean casserole, but maybe I need to level up my game, cook something a little more spontaneous and a little more adventurous. I have nothing to follow that up. That sounds so good.
I'll send you some Instagram recipes, give you some inspiration. Maybe we can make it. Maybe you can go like some cornbread casserole, like loaded up like route or something a little different. Or I give you my mom's green bean casserole, which is very different and very good.
All right. I think I did try your mom's green bean casserole at your Friendsgiving. Maybe. It was someone's who was really good. I don't remember. Maybe I brought green bean casserole. I don't know. Who knows? Well, happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. It's one of my favorite holidays because I am definitely a foodie, that's for sure. I can't get enough of all the Thanksgiving foods.
And if you want like Thanksgiving to be just full of thanks and no regret, I know one thing we've talked about on an episode like this before is like how to navigate the Thanksgiving dinner and not feel miserable. So here's my advice. A, get up in the morning and get some exercise in, whether it's a run, a lift, or whatever. Delay that breakfast or just omit the breakfast if you're going to be doing a Thanksgiving lunch. Try to build those plates around the proteins and the vegetables, and also just take like a small enough piece of everything on your plate so you can figure out what's really good, and then you can kind of double down on the second plate. Don't fall into the mental trap of giant scoops of every single one of the 20 dishes because if you're like me and Cody, you probably got that like clean plate syndrome where even if you get something you don't really like, you're going to eat it. So that's my advice for navigating the Thanksgiving day and letting it be just full of thanks and not kind of gut distress and regret.
Great tips, Justin. Well, thank you all to listening. We are so appreciative of you guys. Wow. We are so appreciative of you all. I think in the next couple of months, we're going to hit 2.5 million downloads on this podcast, which just sounds like a wild number. I don't know exactly how many individual unique downloads we have. I don't think we have that number, but I mean, it's got to be a lot of people. And so seriously, thank you for every single person who has ever listened to an episode. We love recording these for you guys. And I always have a lot of fun hopping on with Justin doing these Thanksgiving specials. Let us know what you're thankful for. In the Facebook group, we'll have a little thread under this one. Again, the show notes for this one will be at thefishow.com/thanks25. Justin, other than Thanksgiving, non-overeating, and amazing appetizer tips, you have anything you want to leave the listeners with on this Christmas or on this Christmas Eve, on this Thanksgiving Eve?
Just reiterating what you said. I'm so thankful for everyone that is listening. Extremely thankful for anyone who ever reaches out to us and lets us know that they're getting something from the episode. So please always let that happen, whether that's yes, the reviews on the podcast are great, but the emails, the Facebook posts, like anything where you can let us know that, like, hey, this has made a difference in your world. Nothing makes us more thankful than hearing how it has positively improved your lives. And like those domino moments, always thankful for that random campfire in Arkansas that brought me and Cody together and let this podcast do its thing. So thank you all for listening. And I hope you all have a safe Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, be safe out there, eat plenty of good food, get your workout in, and we'll see you around.